Hey, everybody. Welcome to, I guess, chronologically, episode 2 of the StL Comics podcast. Tonight, we have some special guests with us. We have Ande Parks and Phil Hester, two creator extraordinaires that just so happen to be in town on the same weekend that we could take full advantage of friendship and connections and get them sucked in here. So we're going to talk to them a bit and see where we go tonight. So first, I'm just going to let you guys know, we'll probably throw out very basic questions you've been asked in every interview, every podcast, but then we have things we want to dive into and see what we can talk about.
Yeah.
So first, I guess, the basic stuff. We'll start with Ande.
Yeah.
What drew you into your passion for creating comics?
I had some comics at the normal age. Everybody has them, well, at least in my era. 6 to 8 years old. I had Sad Sack comics and Richie Rich comics and stuff like that. And then I drifted away for a while. And when my parents were splitting when I was in junior high, I ended up at a 7-Eleven one day and saw, it's actually, the same comic was actually kind of pivotal for both Phil and I, Iron Man number 118.
Okay.
And, you know, at a 7-Eleven, it was kind of
First
potluck
roadie,
if you'd
yeah.
find a cool comic or not.
Yeah.
And that cover has Iron Man falling out of the helicarrier and his suit's in a briefcase.
And
like,
gloves falling out
oh,
of the
damn.
case and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Who was the artist on that cover?
well, Layton drew the
Layton.
cover,
That's a
but it's a
Layton.
John Byrne fill-in.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know that
And
I recall that. Yeah.
and so that was 35 cents, something I could enjoy on my own terms, and it meant a lot to me. So then I was like every week at the 7-Eleven. And fast forward to me bombing out of college, not really knowing what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I was kind of doing art and English and like, I don't know, not going to class that much. I said, you know what? I'm a young person. I want to do something I like for a living. I like comics. I'm going to try it because it sounds like a cool way to make a living, and it would be great to pay my bills that way. It would also be super cool if I could contribute to giving somebody else the kind of entertainment and comfort that those comics gave to me.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that's why I started. And at the time I was 22 maybe. And I said, you know what? If I haven't made it by the time I'm 30, that's still young enough to go get an education or whatever.
Sure. Figure something else out.
I was making a living by the time I was 27 or so I didn't have to decide if that was an empty threat or not. I beat it.
That's
So,
good. Good
yeah.
deal. Beat the goal.
Yeah.
And yourself, Phil?
Yeah, it's very similar. Like you said, Iron Man 118 was like an important issue for both of us. And for me, I mean, I never had a lull. I never fell out of love with comics.
Sure.
But we were both buying comics from newsstands and grocery stores. And you never knew if you would see
There was
the
no
other side of a
consistency.
cliffhanger,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so, like, that issue ends on a cliffhanger, and I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to see the ending of this. And I always like to write and make up my own stories, and I always like to draw. And I decided to draw the end of that cliffhanger so I could, you know, at least satisfy my own curiosity as to how Tony Stark survives this fall. And that it sort of finally clicked in my head that, like, oh, this is what the people whose names are on the first page, you know, that's what they're doing, you know, and maybe I can be that person too. And it started a long trek for me of just writing and drawing my own comics for myself. And then in junior high and high school, finding, even though I went to a super small high school, there were still a couple guys that were also into comics enough to want to make them with me. And so we made comics together. It was like having a high school rock band.
Sure.
But we were like really diligent. Like we had schedules and we acted like we were like a real publisher.
So you had goals.
Yeah. And since my graduating class was 36 people, so it was a small school. And because there's a phenomenon that happens in small towns where, like, if you're known as that kid that's into that thing, like whether it's running cross country or a talented musician or photographer or whatever, the town sort of takes it as a matter of civic pride to sort of get behind those kind of kids.
Yeah.
And so our school secretaries were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make copies of those comics for you guys so you can give them out to your friends and stuff." So they were our printing press. The high school Xerox
That's
machine
awesome.
was our printing
That's
press.
great.
And so we made our own comics. We had our own comics company, and I just kept doing that through college. And when I went to art school, there were a lot more kids that were into comics, and we made comics together. And then luckily, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out when I was like a sophomore.
Okay.
And then by the time I was a junior, we had gone from like 6 comics publishers to 60 comics publishers, and they all needed talent. And I was not ready, but they needed warm bodies, and that became, that was sort of a steady track to making it to my profession.
We both kind of benefited from the boom in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Publishers needed exponentially bigger talent pool.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So, yeah, we kind of hopped on board at that point.
So this was not a question I planned on asking you guys, but just kind of what you were saying and then how you brought that in. Do you have a project out there? Howard Chaykin will not sign Star Wars books,
Right?
because he is so disappointed in the work that he
Right.
produced. Do you have a project like that?
Yeah, what you're doing is trying to find out what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do. Not that I will refuse to sign it or anything, but if somebody brings it to me, I'll make them an offer on it.
To get it off
Yeah.
the street?
Yeah.
You're going to pull it off the street. Okay. Yeah.
That's a lot of copies to track down.
Not really, but and I'll tell you why. I mean, if you want my long answer, the very first thing I ever did was a book for Silverwolf Comics.
Okay.
Called Port. Silverwolf is famous for being the place where Tim Vigil got a start, and Ron Lim and myself. We all started there. But the book's really not good because like I said, I really wasn't ready, and I'm really not happy with the work. So like if somebody sees it, if somebody brings it up for a signature, I'll try to buy it from them. Yeah, get it off the market.
Let's pull that off.
And, and do they go into a box in your house, or do they go in the
they
dump?
go in the garbage. Yeah. No,
For nobody to ever find again.
Yeah, for some reason, like when I was like really young, they went out of business, and like they were like, as a settlement, we'll send you all your backstock. And they sent me 700 copies of Port #1.
Oh my God!
And they all got
That's
dumped.
funny.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
looking at the early work of almost any comic artist out there, I would argue that a lot of them weren't ready but got a break.
Yeah.
And it probably helped them.
Oh yeah,
better.
it helped me a lot. I learned to draw all sorts of things that I would never taught myself
Yeah,
to draw.
I mean, it's a
and-
springboard to success.
Yeah.
I would also think just the business acclimate that you get from that, the
Yeah.
education of working with somebody.
No, it's invaluable. I have no ill feelings about it. I just my own performance that I don't like.
Sure.
But we're lucky. We both had those things. I inked a comic for Malibu for $10 a page. That was kind
can say the
it's
name.
called Scimitar.
Yes.
Inking
With a
Rob
D,
Davis.
with a D, not a T.
Scimitar. It was
Scimitar,
kind of
yes.
R-rated.
It was like
I don't love it.
Skinamax.
Yeah.
Skinamax.
Right. Well, that sold
Softcore.
1,000 copies. Poor Howard.
Yeah.
Star Wars 1.
There's no escape.
There's a lot of those damn things
Right,
out there.
There is a whole bunch of those from
People
77
come
out
up to
there.
him, big, strong guys, tears in their eyes. This Star Wars comic meant a lot to me.
Yeah. And he's like, F that. get
Yeah,
out of
F
here.
that,
Like,
F you,
I
F
mean,
your family.
Yeah, that's kind of how Howard talks to you.
I
so,
swear
yeah.
I've seen his signature on at least one book, and it was a hardcover edition of probably the first 4 or 6 issues of Star Wars, and he wasn't the only one to have signed it. Goodwin was in there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a couple other people.
So he was paid well for that.
Well, I mean,
signature.
it was
Also-
probably when they first made
Yeah.
the
but
hardcover edition.
Also, I think if somebody walked up to Howard and they had an Archie signature in it, that would break the ice.
Yeah.
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 Because everybody loved Archie.
Sure.
I saw him on a panel once with Tom Palmer. So the con organizers didn't really think it through because the thing they had in common in comics was Star Wars. So there were a lot of questions. And about the 5th Star Wars questions, Howard couldn't take it anymore. He said, look,
Started to break.
I've had a long career of some work I'm really proud of, and I did this dumb thing, and frankly, it's insulting to, you know. And Tom's like, huh?
All right, so then moving on, I guess the next thing I'd like to ask, it's going to be twofold. One is there a title or a character that you've worked on and love so much and would do it again if given the opportunity. And then 2, same thing, character or project that you wish never happened. And that could be, I'm going to kind of go in a little bit like, was that because the story wasn't there? You were rushed, the editor's direction, anything like that just made it an unpleasant experience. And, you know, you don't have to name drop anybody if you'd like to keep that private. But
Well, it's funny because we were just talking about this today. Kelly Jones, the artist Kelly Jones, came up in a discussion today at the con, and I was talking about how one time I sat down with Kelly at a con. Oh, we were in a shuttle back to the airport or whatever from a con, and we had both drawn Swamp Thing, and it came up that, like, you know, that's the only gig we ever had that we had a long run on it, but we'd still go back to it again.
Okay.
Like everything else, you sort of like a couple of years, you sort of work all your
went through
desires
the motions.
out. Yeah,
sure.
you satisfy your desire to work on that character. But we both felt like Swamp Thing was inexhaustible, that we could go back to Swamp Thing again.
And what was it about Swamp Thing that made it that way?
Well, for one thing, like we're both like horror fans, but a very specific kind of horror fans, which is we're monster fans. We like monsters who are the good guys, you know.
Yeah.
And Swamp Thing fits that bill perfectly. And I think it probably says something about like comic book readers, comic book creators, you know, see themselves as misfits and outcasts, but they also see themselves as noble. And that's what those kind of swamp monster characters, or Werewolf by Night, you know, all those kind of characters.
Compassionate
Yeah,
monster.
they are.
Yeah.
Chaotic good.
Yeah, exactly. And but, you know, beyond that, just like in terms of work, it's really satisfying character to draw, because you don't like every way you draw him is on model, you know, and you can be really unique and expressive about it, and your take is accurate, you know, just by the dint of you doing it, it becomes an accurate take of Swamp Thing. So I think that would be my answer for that.
I don't think I was pondering it while you were talking. I don't think mine is recapturable, because the first thing I thought of was, well, doing Green Arrow with Phil and Kevin Smith was probably the most exciting, like, holy cow, I can't wait. I get to ink a page of this today, time in my life.
And I hate to interrupt you or break your train of thought, but I am specifically, as anybody that follows us on my social medias knows, I am a Kevin Smith fan.
Yeah, right.
So I have some questions directly. We'll get to that later. Yeah. So I apologize.
But if you offered me that again, I guess if it were with Kevin, I'd be in. But we've drawn Green Arrow since then, and it's not the same, because it wasn't the character or the book or even working with Phil. It was all of it. It was, I know this is going to change my career.
Right.
Because Kevin's going to bring Phil and I up to a place we've never seen before. Like before that, DC would hire both of us, but never together. We were viewed as too weird together.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And it never would have happened if Kevin didn't want it, because they would have said, oh, Kevin's writing a book for us? Great, go get hot guy number 2.
Yeah.
Not Phil and Andy. Nobody would have said, we need Phil and Andy. And Kevin's like, I don't care, these are my guys.
Yeah. That's the only way it happened, yeah.
Just the excitement of all that.
That's
and I was at the right age, you know. That time I don't think I could get back.
Yeah,
so.
we had young families, so it meant a lot to us financially, too.
And we were right. It changed everything. Like we
Because
never.
that was consistent work. Like,
And big, I mean, it was DC.
And visibility.
It was the #1 book in comics for a few months.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought those off the stands.
Yeah.
Read every one of them. So that being said, that was commercially successful. Would that also translate to being work you've absolutely enjoyed, or is there other things you've enjoyed working on more that weren't necessarily so media forward and commercially successful?
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm never satisfied with a drawing gig when I hand it in. Like, by the time it's on the stands, I don't want to see it anymore.
Well,
So,
I think that's
like,
just the nature of an artist, right?
Yeah. I don't feel. I mean, I'm proud of it. I'm happy with the work I did on Green Arrow, but like I feel like every subsequent gig is a better gig for me as an artist. But I don't know how Andy feels about that.
When I look back, the things that really I go, oh, I was so juiced to do that, whether it's sold or not. It's all creator-owned stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We got Mike Manley, our buddy in Philadelphia, put together a publishing line for a while. We did an anthology called Action Planet Comics, and I created Uncle Slam and Fire Dog, and you created, help me, the name.
Just a character called Nails.
Yeah.
It was like a throwaway killer robot
And
guy.
just the thrill of doing our own thing.
Creating something of your own. Yeah.
From scratch and drawing it together, and that's a real high, and still is. Like today, when people say, "What character are you dying to draw or write?" and I'm like, I've kind of done enough of that. What I really am passionate about is making stuff up. Like I want to own it. I want it to be mine.
Just killed like 6 of his questions.
No, that is
perfect.
definitely a point I was going to come to later, and that's another one we're going to circle back to.
I get high on making something new that is going to be mine out in the world. That's
sure
because I've drawn Batman, I've drawn Green Arrow, I've drawn Captain America. I wrote Daredevil a little. I wrote some franchise like Lone Ranger and all cool. I don't need any more of that really.
Right.
There's nothing you throw at me. I go boo, and drop my creator-owned thing.
Yeah, every time I think that somebody brings something up and I go, oh yeah, I really do need to do that.
That would be cool.
But you're not like me. He's probably got 4 Silver Surfer stories in his head right now.
Yeah.
And I don't work that way.
Yeah. So you're constantly thinking in the back of your mind, like stories driven from what you're saying.
Well, in some ways, I'm almost like kind of ashamed of the fact that like an editor can roll up on me with like a franchise that I haven't thought about or even don't respect, but they'll say, "What's your take on this?" And like that's like catnip to me. And like the part of my brain.
Which storyline do you want to hear?
How could I make GoBots work?
Right.
and I will. I was like, "What's my profound GoBots take?" And I'm easy to get that way. And I don't know if that's something to be proud about or something to be ashamed of.
I think that's something to be proud of.
I think it's far more impressive to take a property that has been nothing but a straight loser and make it a win. I don't know if anybody has ever succeeded with the Ditko character. Was it Speedball?
Oh yeah.
Was that his name?
Yeah, the bouncing kid.
I hear that and I think of John Belushi dying of heroin and cocaine. And they named a comic character and it's a Ditko property. But I mean, how do you take something like that?
Yeah, but somewhere somebody is thinking about it. Some fan is thinking about their take on
they have a whole
how to do
story
Speedball.
Yeah.
The blue spandex with the leopard spots.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's in some ways that's what's magical about comics is like it's always teetering on ludicrousness,
Sure.
But the fact that we can take it seriously and like fish something meaningful out of it is like it's almost like a secret code between like readers and creators that like we're the kind of people that look for that sort of meaning in everything. So like even if something is like ridiculous like Speedball. Or like ignored like comics in general, that's still the way we're going to learn to communicate with each other.
There's I think a gentleman's agreement there of suspension of disbelief. And plausible deniability.
Right.
We all go into it just saying all of this stuff is okay, even though in the real world,
not even like in spite of it, because of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that crossing that initial boundary of absurdity is sort of our like bona fides, like to be like to communicate with each other is like this doesn't put us off. This is like our entry fee into this world is that we're not put off by bizarre things like that.
Right.
And that's it's like an undeniable attraction of comics to me.
And Phil and I share a sensibility about liking bold and graphic and I hate this word, but I don't know how else to say cartoony stuff.
Yeah.
More than photo ref work that shows the seams in the costume, that kind of thing. Because I want to dive in from a more surreal point of view and envelop myself in that. And when it looks like my uncle's wearing the suit and got photographed on his balcony.
Yeah.
It kind of take.
my shop teacher.
I don't want to attach it to the real world like
there,
that.
There
You know?
is definitely, especially when it comes to like variant covers nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Oh,
this
my.
all too much old man realism.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody's aged and looks weird and worn out and too real. And the fantasy kind of starts
Right.
to get lost for me.
Well, I
And I-
blame Alex Ross. I love him.
I don't. He's a very powerful man.
He knows better, is what he's saying.
I love the guy's stuff, but
Yeah.
I think he put a flip on the industry.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, and you can see a lot of artists like Matina Perillo. There's a strong influence
Yeah.
from
Oh,
him
for
there
sure.
for sure.
And before that, guys like Shelley Moldoff
Oh, boy.
thought, Neil Adams, you're killing us.
Yeah.
Like, stop it. We're supposed to be making funny book pictures, and you're in here.
Yeah.
Dynamics and realism and
And then like a Ditko to an Adams
Yeah.
type
Right.
of thing
Yeah.
like
That's
that.
exactly
You
it,
know,
yeah.
it's very drastically different. All right, so now I'm going to poo-poo on all that, and I want to hear the negative side. Like, what is it? Like we talked about, what murdered you, or
Oh.
what would you refuse
I get to go first
back
because
to?
we may have the same one, and I want to take
Okay,
it.
all
He
right,
has a clear
good deal.
answer.
Just- we did a run on Nightwing, and we were so excited because we got a Bat book, and we both love Batman. Especially I wanted to draw Batman, and Kevin let us do it a little bit. But yeah, DC wanted to keep us around, and they said, "Well, no Bat book, but Nightwing," and we're like, "Good,
Close enough.
Good enough."
We're in the family.
That's still a Bat book.
Yeah.
And then we got a story that was him undercover infiltrating the mob, and I guess was The Sopranos on the air yet? Is that
Yeah.
why that
Oh,
happened?
yeah.
Oh.
Was this Gang Wars tied into
Is that right?
No, it was its own thing.
Mob something?
Mobbed Up, it was called.
Yeah.
Mobbed
The
up.
trade was
Okay,
called
yeah,
Mobbed
yep,
Up.
yep. Okay.
So we got very little Nightwing punching villains. We got a lot of
He's
Dick.
not
Detective work.
He's never in costume.
Dick in a leather jacket. And why
spandex.
was he on crutches?
He started the story arc with his leg broken.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it was a
rough for
slog.
us.
We're like, this is not exactly what we signed up for.
And that's no knock on the writer or
It's just what the arc was going to be.
it was the time that you came in
Yeah.
to that
Well,
story.
the continuity led you in.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just saw it. Somebody had me sign one today, and I opened it up, and it was a splash of Dick entering a warehouse full of boxes, and I'm like, oh,
And I'm not good enough to make that interesting. Yeah.
damn it.
I wouldn't say I'm not going to pin it on a specific gig, but I would say like anytime I took a job for the money, just for the money, I regretted it
Sure.
later. I
'Cause you
mean,
didn't
but
have-
but I did. I mean, it is my job, and I need
Can
to
we
work.
ask
You
what-
need the money.
What
Yeah.
was one of those gigs that
I-
you took for the money and wasn't excited about?
And so that doesn't come across negatively.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're trying to say is you just didn't have passion behind that project
right.
or character.
Let me put it. I'm not going to name a specific thing, but I'll say I have a tendency to overbook myself because I remember time when I didn't have enough work, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, but Andy and I haven't had to look for work really
Sure.
for a long time. Like we don't go out looking for people who come to us to ask us to do things. So I don't know why I had it in the back of my head that like I need to take gigs for the money, but I still have that freelancer mentality that I can't rid myself. I'm almost 60. I need to figure out a way to get past this. But like anytime I've like panicked and jumped at a gig for money, I've regretted it by the end of that gig. And when I took gigs because I was passionate about it, whether the money was good or not, I don't think about that at all while I'm working. I just have a good time creating. So I'll give it that blanket answer because
I can respect that. And I think
I don't
that's
really want to
that's very
rag on
understandable.
anybody. Yeah, because like sometimes, you might do a gig that like you regret, but for your collaborators, it was like a dream come true to get to work with you, and you don't want. I don't know.
Sure.
That's why I even was hesitant to bring up Port, because like I objectively it's not a good comic.
Sure.
That Silver Wolf comic, it's not a good comic, but I know it was like a passion project for Chris Silver, the guy that created the company, and it's almost like it kind of, I don't want to like devalue like all the passion he put into it, even if the end result wasn't like very good comics or me getting paid. Neither of those things. Neither of those things happened at the end. But I know how hard it is to make comics. Even a bad comic is super hard to make.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes in.
Yeah. So,
While he was talking about that, it hit me. I have a worse one that doesn't involve.
Geez, here we go.
It doesn't involve
and I
Phil.
will name names.
Because really, if I was inking Phil, it could only be so miserable because we get along so well and we have the same kind of. But one of the best-selling comics I ever inked was Catwoman, at a time when it was selling like crazy, and I got a good royalty check with every issue, the best royalties I ever saw until Green Arrow happened. And I was miserable because I said yes to inking Jim Ballant, who was not an artist I had anything in common with. And I'm sure neither of us were happy. I wasn't doing what he wanted. I couldn't relate to what he wanted. And 4 miserable issues before the editor finally had the good sense to pull the plug. And I was like, thank God. Yeah.
And Jim has a unique style.
Yeah.
You know,
and I just couldn't bring myself to make all those lines. It's just not in my sensibility. And so it wasn't good for me.
19 rib.
Yeah, all the just the hatchy.
No, he is a very thin,
Yeah. Very nice guy, I will say.
Bad pairing. Yeah, not good.
All right, so moving on. Now we're all depressed and sad. So I did bring up the Kevin Smith stuff. And so prior to that, how much had you guys worked together?
Quite a bit on small stuff. Like the first gig I got what I considered a real check was inking Phil at Dark Horse on a book called Freak Some More. I don't remember what we got per page. Maybe I got $60 or something.
Yeah, to us at the time it was decent money.
And it
Dark Horse was very creator friendly at that time, right? Yeah.
And it was like 150 pages of work or something pretty substantial.
They were 3 oversized issues, like 3 48-page issues.
And from then on, we had been able to work together on various creator-owned or smaller press or whatever. But DC kept us away from each other.
I mean, but they were hiring us.
Yeah,
but not
they
together.
were keeping you working, but wouldn't put you
like
together.
when I was inking Jim Ballant, I could have been inking him on maybe Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
but they wouldn't hear of it. So
right.
So with that in mind, like how you had mentioned, Kevin wanted you guys. Like that was really it. And I would assume, as much as you guys worked with him over that time, did he talk about why he picked you?
Yeah, Phil can tell you why.
Yeah, he was a big fan of the Mark Miller Swamp Thing run.
Okay.
And he even owned a page from it. He bought a page of my art from that run. And so, like, he had it in our head that, you know, I was a comic book artist. I was a comic book artist he knew. And when the Clerks gigs opened up, and Bob Schreck was the editor of those, and Bob Schreck had sort of been shepherding our careers.
He kind of
knew
knew us, yeah.
Yeah, Bob was sort of our guardian angel at a lot of places, but at Dark Horse specifically. And that was sort of a serendipitous thing that Bob said, "Hey, how about these guys?" And in Kevin's mind, he's like, "Oh, I own a page of Phil's. He must be good. let's have them do this Clerks one shot." And that started our relationship with Kevin. And then when he came to do Green Arrow, when Bob convinced him to do Green Arrow at DC, Kevin, I think, had in mind to have Joe Quesada come draw it.
There was a little conflict of interest.
Yeah, Joe got this other job then, running Marvel Comics.
Right.
Yeah,
just this little job. Yeah.
Was that the EIC job?
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have been good to have that job and draw Green Arrow. So Kevin just sort of moved down to his list of like guys he knew and liked working with, and we had done Clerks of the Lost Scene together, and so we were next in the chamber.
And we knew that job was big. Like, we really pulled out all the stops on that gig to make it as good as we could.
Yeah.
So he thought, yeah, that came out well. So they're my Green Arrow guys.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So then you were talking about he owned a page of yours. I'm not wrong. He bought all of your art, a lot of it at least.
Let's see. He bought the whole Clerk's job and every.
Sounds of Violence. He bought all Sounds of Violence.
Right. He didn't buy the whole first arc.
Okay.
Right. But he bought a lot of the.
He
first
bought
arc.
select pages.
Okay.
Yeah. And then at various times he'll buy, and then he'll go, "Why do I have all this crap?" And he'll sell it.
Yeah.
Well, now last year he auctioned a lot of those Green Arrow pages off.
I bought some
to fund his Sma Castle Cinema, you know, this indie art house that he has essentially taken over and New Jersey.
Yeah.
His childhood cinema.
Yeah.
To say.
Yeah, I did buy some pages back from it.
Oh, did you?
Because I wanted some. I didn't have a Sounds of Violence page because he owned all those, and I wanted one of those, and I got one. And then I really wanted a splash page of. There's a splash page from the early run that's Batman, Green Arrow fighting the demon, and it's
wow.
it really I really think it's cool. Even today, I think it's cool. And I could not afford it.
Yeah.
Well,
I cannot afford my
his
own.
name will drive those prices up some. Yeah.
Was it your choice to sell it in the first place?
Well, to him, like when Kevin wants something, you sell.
You
to
say
him.
yes.
Yeah, because he pays a fair price, and he hooked us up with a gig. So
Right.
but
And we would give him a buddy deal, not
Yeah.
not half
Sure.
price, but
a fair deal. But when it came up for auction this last time, I was like, I'm not paying $4,000 for my own artwork.
That's supposed
I'll
to work
just
the other way
redraw
around,
it,
right?
Yeah, I'm not doing it. But it's also now that stuff's the older stuff gets, the more expensive
Yeah.
it gets too. But yeah, it was kind of an object lesson in how time moves on.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have anything from Quiver that you kept in a vault?
No, I don't have. I bought. I bought another thing back from somebody else. I bought the Samnam page back from
Oh, cool.
another dealer.
I kept one splash. I had the splash from number 2,
oh yeah,
where he grabs the guy,
right.
and yeah.
So I've got the Morpheus page from I don't know what issue it is, 10, and then a page from Meltzer's run, Brad Meltzer's run, a splash, and then a page from Sounds of Violence. And that's
All
about
I
it.
kept was the splash from number 2, and then the final page of the run we ever drew.
Oh, of the
splashy.
last Judd issue.
Yeah,
Wow.
number 44 or whatever.
Yeah,
it was,
yeah,
which is a really cool splash of them
yeah.
running
Jumping
through
off
the
roof.
city, and we rewrote our names on a water tower behind them.
Oh,
To
very
kinda
nice.
say farewell.
Yeah, very nice. So, is that your favorite project that you guys have collaborated on together, or is there something else that, in taking out the Kevin Smith element and the bigger publicity that might have come with that, but just something that you guys have worked on and thoroughly enjoyed as creators?
Well, for me, it goes back to an answer I gave previously, which is it's always the latest thing.
Sure.
It's always the latest thing we did together, and I think I was ribbing him today about this. The last thing we ever did for DC together was a Mr. Bones backup. The character from
Not very memorable.
Yeah, and I was like, you can't go out on this.
And he's like, I'm not drawing anymore. I'm not inking nothing.
We did do some covers after that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did Green Arrow, and we did some Green Arrow fill-in stuff together. But even though that Green Arrow fill-in stuff and the covers are not going to be as memorable to the general public, or even to us, technically they're better than what we were doing then.
Sure,
because
yeah.
I think we're better creators now.
But I do think I probably peaked as an inker at a point because I'd semi-retire, and then I'd come back and ink a little. And between age and not doing it day in, day out, even though my sensibility and I might mentally know more, at some point it takes a while to get your hands and eyes back where you were when you were really firing every day,
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to ink something for a month or so to really go
Just to warm up the whole
yeah.
time. Yeah.
And plus, at some point, old age wins.
Yeah.
At some point, you can't do the stuff
yeah.
you used to do, and you start seeing it in older artists. Their stuff's almost everybody. Never happened to Joe Kubert,
Right.
but starts to get a little wonky, and your vision isn't quite what it was. And yeah,
Well, and with Joe, honestly, when did he ever put the pen down?
Right.
It almost seems like
Yeah.
that's just he lived, breathed, slept just art.
Kirby was the same way, I think.
Yeah,
A
there
bunch
was
of those
times.
old school guys.
Yeah, but you could see Kirby physically he
Yes.
got worn
he's a
down.
great
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
of-
Yeah.
You
Best
could
example of it.
Of how the lines weren't all there
Yeah.
again. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to lead into something else by specifically asking Andy some
Okay.
questions.
Good.
First of all, congratulations on all the success you've had over the last several years with
Yeah,
Q
whoop,
Adad
whoop.
and Extraction.
Thank you.
You got we had the fantastic graphic novel, QAnon.
Yeah.
Then that was adapted into a movie with Chris Hemsworth and the Russo brothers.
Right. They
Directed
produced it.
that? Okay. They
Different
produced
guy.
it?
By the time it got made, they were too busy to direct it. So they,
Okay.
yeah.
They
Sam
had-
Hargrave
they,
directed.
They got this other gig.
Right.
Yeah,
They were directing the biggest movies in the world. Yeah.
So Noah's tangentially is great for everybody's career. You know,
Yeah.
something great will happen to you.
So that did great. First movie
Yeah.
was amongst one of the most watched on Netflix, and then got a bigger boost when number 2 came out.
Right.
I think that went up, and number 2 did real good.
Yeah.
How do you trying to think of how to phrase this? How is that your reality now?
I know.
Your passion project.
Yeah.
I would think, right? This was a book you wrote. This was all of your concepts that got converted on to screen.
That all my concept isn't quite true because the Russos kind of created the kernel and then hooked up with me and we developed it together. But yeah, it was very surreal, especially given that from the time I met them and signed to the time the movie came out was a 12-year span,
Oh wow.
in the middle of which the book came out, and throughout which I heard at least a dozen times from Hollywood that it was a done deal and going to be made. We had it going with Chris. It was never Chris Rock. It was The Rock.
The Rock.
I would pay for the Chris.
Not
Rock
Chris
one.
Rock, The Rock. Yeah.
Met with Brad Pitt at one point. At one point, Channing Tatum. You know, all the and so
Wasn't
close,
McConaughey-
so close. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
so close. Again and again and again. To by the point it did go, I had just met with my producer and he told me it's a done deal. Chris Hemsworth filming, and I was like, Eric, I've heard it.
again.
I've heard it. And he's like, okay, you'll see. And 5 days later, I'm looking at Twitter and there's Hemsworth on the set. And I'm like, oh.
It's real.
Wow.
So very jaded. And then this is just the way I'm built. You know, some people see the best possible outcome and that's all they can envision. I'm not. I'm the other guy.
We are mutually pessimistic,
Yeah.
my friend. Yes.
So I was pretty sure even if they were filming, well, maybe they'll finish it, but it probably won't be any good. And probably nobody will like it. And then COVID hits, and I know it's about to come out. And I'm like, well, this is weird. Are people going to watch? I get up that morning. I watch it just like everybody else. I go, I think it's not bad. Right? It doesn't suck for that kind of movies, right? But probably nobody will like it. They'll all think it's dumb. And then within a month, 250 million people had seen it. And you're like, what? So the ideas I had in that room with the Russos, now 250 million people, it's
Are experiencing that.
pretty
Yeah.
crazy. And all tempered through all this jaded disappointment, you know, for so many years. And then just like, boom, all my dim expectations just shattered by this crazy reality.
That's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Like this is what you've been working or
Yeah.
hoped to
Right.
achieve. You know?
And I just kind of conditioned, well, the dream doesn't happen. And then, and then to have another one that people liked, and now they've announced a TV show. And
So that's that was my next
Uh-huh.
question. There was discussion of a third, right?
Yeah.
But now it's being adapted to a TV show.
right. I
Okay.
think a third is still a good chance.
Oh, all right.
It's a matter of getting, so everybody loves the director, Sam Hargrave, and nobody wants to make one without him. So you got to get Sam and Chris at the same time.
When they're
And-
both
yeah,
available
right.
schedule-wise. Sure.
So
And-
in the meantime, they've developed this TV show idea. Glenn Mazzara, is that the right name? Who worked on Walking Dead in the early, did he take over when Darabont left, kind of?
You're asking things I don't know.
I think. He put together an idea for this
Was he on Entourage too, like
Spin-
Darabont was? I don't know. Sorry.
like spin-off thing, which is in the same universe somehow, but a different lead character.
Okay, so
if anybody saw the show, do you say Lupin? Lupin?
Yeah, I know the one. you're
About the French
Yeah.
hot dude.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
super-
It's Omar Sy, I think is his name. He's going to be the star of the new Extraction TV
He's
show
like a
called
super
Mercenary.
Fantastic.
So I think maybe there's a chance for that coming out in 26. And then I think we have some plans in comics to maybe coincide that I can't talk about. So
All right.
Way to
that's it.
tease. What a
Understand. tease. We
so
like
yeah, it's
teases.
good. It's an ongoing thing. And sometimes I think, I mean, my wife has to say, sometimes I can't believe so lucky. And she goes, it's true. It is luck. But you also wrote a lot of good books that this didn't happen for.
Yeah.
And so you deserve to have one that it finally,
Got your
you know,
moment.
yeah. So
Why not?
that's why I married the best woman. God bless her.
Congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you.
Cheers.
My Diet Pepsi's under this.
Yeah, cheers to the Diet
Cheers.
Pepsi. So, how many hats have you bought with all those?
Yeah, it's a danger. It's a danger.
Did you buy more
he
hats
died in the
or
gutter.
better hats?
Yes.
Yes. Just yes. Fantastic.
I'll tell you what I did when I got my first movie check. It's, you know, I always tell people, if I created this whole thing by myself, we wouldn't be speaking because I'd be in the south of France. The Russos created it and gave me part of the back end. So I get, you know, it's nice money, but not earth-changing. So I got my first check, and I think you guys will enjoy this. When I was in junior high, I paid $60 for a copy of Avengers #4.
Nice.
I love Captain America. I love the idea of owning the first Captain America story in the Silver Age. And so excited about it that I wanted to hang it on my wall. So I went to TGY, the
TG and Y.
TG&Y, and got a metal frame, and I slid the comic in there. And in sliding it, I scraped off part of the black on the cover.
Oh no!
And then I covered that with a marker. And then, and then
Amateur
later
color
I
touch.
became an adult, and I still have the comic, but it always like, oh, that was, young me kind of ruined this thing that's sad. And when I got my movie check, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go fix that broken memory.
Fantastic.
And I said, I have a reading copy. So the first slabbed comic I ever bought, I spent like $1,500 on like a 6.5 slabbed Avengers 4.
Oh.
And I was like, there. Now
Done.
young me has fixed it.
I've closed that door. We're
Yeah,
good.
right.
Yeah,
Full circle.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you bought TG and Y, the company.
Right. I just
Out of
bought
rec-
the franchise.
Out of receivership.
They wanted $4,000, but I said, all right.
So we're back. Thank you, Andy, for sharing that story of the Ciudad extraction storyline. Looking forward to whatever comes out of that.
Me too.
And I mean, can we get a Capote adaptation next?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it's very similar. Capote kicks ass. And
He's had enough.
Yeah, right. So, I guess my next question would be like individually, and we'll go to Phil first. Like, do you have a passion project or creator-owned your own project that you're either working on or would like to see come out? Like,
yeah, it's a funny segue because we both are, and it's at the same place. We're both doing series for Ignition Press, a new publisher.
okay,
That's headed up by Jeremy Hahn and Philip Sablick and Jamie Rich, who
Jeremy Hahn from KC,
who we've
area,
all
right?
we've all
Joplin,
worked with
but
many
yeah.
times, and your guy Eric Gitter's involved in it too, and it's sort of like the kind of dream situation that you don't think is real because they've come to you and said, you know, what have you always wanted to do that we can help you make happen, and we'll help you make a living while you do it.
Wow.
You know, and
All right.
and then we'll shop it for you in Hollywood too, and it's the kind of freedom that you really hope for, that you really strive for your whole career, and usually have to be a superstar to get.
Okay.
Like you have to be a huge name to get this kind of freedom, but I think the people behind Ignition were smart enough to know that creators at, you know, my level, Andy's level, we've proven that we have ideas that translate to Hollywood and that can appeal to people, like, you know, in the comic shop too. And if we get the kind of financial trust from a place like that, we can produce stuff that can really resonate with people. And so, yeah, I'm doing a horror book that I'm writing and drawing. I'm doing another horror book that I'm just writing, and Andy's doing stuff for them as well.
And a side note, like, just my brief interactions with Jeremy and his wife, they are very business
They're
focused.
very sharp.
Yes,
operators,
they're on
yeah.
top of their game for
Yeah.
sure. So I think
without
that's a good team to be with. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, without that kind of acumen, I don't think this deal would go off.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And looking at the level of work Jeremy and Philip and Jamie put in, it's really it's a lot of effort to get a company off the ground like that.
But they've got the experience, and they're all like really like well respected and beloved, kind of in their previous positions at the publishers they were at before. So they've got a lot of goodwill behind them that they're bringing to bear in this place.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So it's Jamie
Rich,
okay,
who edited he edited Union Station, the first thing I ever wrote. He's my editor.
And he was, he was the bad
circle.
editor at DC. Yeah,
wow.
He's been to the.
And they've announced their first book. It's a Jamie Rich book that he's writing called Murder Podcast, and they're doing a kind of a unique business model where at first they do a cold open book, like a shorter story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
or a zero issue.
It's the
I guess
same
you'd call
thing,
Okay.
but it's not part of the continuity. And they do a Kickstarter for that to let people kind of in early, and then it'll go to stores, and that'll be the self-contained story.
Okay.
And they're focusing on like 5-issue series. And
So, Jamie, Jeremy, and who else?
Philip Sablick.
formerly of Boom and Top Gun.
Okay.
before that.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
But they're all guys that, like, whether you know it or not, they've had a hand in a lot of really, really good projects, as either editors or consultants or executives.
And you have 2 projects, and you're
He's
working
got
Yeah,
on
I'm
lots
working
of
on
projects.
several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to lead into something or ask something a little different. Artist-wise, we'll start with artist. Who out there, like, right now is drawing you in? And I'm just going to throw this out there, like, Phil, you say you love the horror stuff. Is it Holtz?
Kyle Holtz?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I've always liked him. He's old like me, though. He's not a young hot guy. No, I've always dug his stuff, and it's really engaging, and he's sort of like the perfect monster artist.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the usual suspects that like really excite me. Like I'm really into James Herron and Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo, and it seems like every time James Stocco, Bill Questley, like every time I turn around, there's a new young artist that's like not only like incredibly good, but somehow all these people are like good looking too, and like young, and I don't know how it happened.
Like Kyle is the epitome of male specimen. Really.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Big bulky guy.
It's
in great
just
shape.
wild to see like we all fit that like stereotype kind of like pasty faced young Dan kind of creator.
Well, isn't comics creation the fountain of youth?
Apparently. Yeah, I didn't know this. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like kind of frightening to see the future coming, and it's all like so superior to yourself.
So much more attractive. Than
Yeah,
what
but
I'm
like, no,
used to.
just in terms of work, like the aesthetic at both Marvel and DC and among readership in general, and I think largely due to the influence of manga, it's just busted wide open. So like there's no real house style at Marvel or DC anymore, though, like there was when we were coming up, and they could get kind of hidebound and boring. But now like the art directors and the editors are all younger and all grew up reading like European comics and Japanese comics and Korean comics. And so they've got a wider aesthetic. So there's room for like Daniel Warren Johnson would not be allowed to draw the Flash like in 1993.
Right.
He just wouldn't. It's too weird. Like we were too weird, and we're not that weird,
Right, right.
But like, so I think it's a really exciting time because everybody can be served. It's almost like the narrow casting that's going on with television right now. Like when we were kids, everybody had to watch Roots because that's what was on.
Yes.
Yeah. But now you can seek out what you want to see. And it's that way in the comics market as well.
So there's less rules?
Yeah, for sure.
The doors are more open.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a time when DC Comics was redrawing Superman's face over
Yes.
Kirby's art, which
Yeah.
A
He could draw
travesty.
everything but Superman's face.
Yeah, travesty. Yeah. And I wish they'd done it on paste up. They actually did it on the board.
Yeah.
Which is brutal because you'll
Well, I don't
you'll
think-
never recover those
I don't
faces.
think Kirby was the only one they did it
No,
to.
no,
He's
no,
just
no.
the most notorious.
Yeah, it's because Kirby's was so far afield. But if you ever see the Xeroxes of the pencils, Kirby's Superman's got this like savage edge to him that makes it. That just makes him so much cooler.
It's really
been appealing at that time to kids
Yeah.
for sure.
The only guy he didn't mention, and again, I don't have my finger on the pulse really. I don't buy all the brand new comics, but he's middle aged now. But Chris Somney's like,
Somney's
he
great.
always excites me.
Yes, his art is so fun, and I've really tried. Like my wife is indirectly related to him, or somebody
really?
she worked with. I don't know, but I reached out so many times and tried to get him to come do.
He's
things
very
with
reclusive.
us. Yes,
Yeah.
and very.
Ditko-esque.
No,
No, I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say that, but very respectfully, his time off the clock is dedicated to his
kids.
family.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah, and
Because he really works hard and he doesn't have a
does.
lot of
He
off
does,
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
but some of that Daredevil stuff that he did was just so fun to look at, as it was a different take.
Yeah. No, there's so many great artists coming out. Like, like at different ends of the spectrum. Dan Moore is doing great mainstream stuff. Jesse Lonergan's doing great weird stuff.
Mark Spears, have
Yeah.
you guys checked
Oh, yeah,
out
there's great-
the
I mean-
monster stuff that he's doing right now?
Yeah, I think it's really a super exciting time to be a comic book reader.
Well, and like we were talking about before, the doors have been blown wide open. You have people that created just little web comics that are now getting published and being put in front of the audience that,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything bad, but, so many people knock on payments and things of working with big publishers. But at the same time, younger people and more creatives are getting exposure that weren't getting that before.
The digital age has
Yeah.
made it possible for people to be seen
Oh, yeah. You can
that in the past never would have happened.
And you can have wild success. Like when we were coming up, like you had to like work for Marvel or DC to
Right.
consider yourself a professional or to have made it. And now you can just go on to Webtoons and create Lore Olympus, and and be able to buy Marvel and
Well,
DC.
if you can tell a good story,
Yeah,
what's to stop you?
yeah,
And I always tell people at cons, they come up and they have maybe pinup drawings they've done, and I'd say, cool, what do you want to do? What's your goal? And they say, I want to draw comics. I said, well, I'll see you next year then, and let's
Yeah.
see some comics. And these days, you don't even have to go to Kinko's.
yeah.
You can put it on your
online.
blog
Yeah.
spot
Yeah.
and update it whenever you want, and update it every day, maybe a panel a day, whatever.
Yeah.
And you have direct access to the world.
Well, the X-Men creator has this whole story online.
It's Byrne.
John Byrne.
went
Oh,
back.
Oh, the
right,
one
yeah,
he, yeah.
Yeah.
The one he
Yeah.
published on his website.
Yeah.
It's only
That
pencils
Savage
and
Land comic,
pencils
yeah.
and maybe inks.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, there's that for sure.
Well, how does Marvel not?
Because he's not monetizing it.
He's not making money out of it
Yeah,
anyway.
it's out there for
He's just
free.
like, I felt like doing it.
Sure,
so.
but how does that not get colored?
Copy.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
and-
Oh, yeah.
And printed. How does Marvel?
Oh, how are they missing
that's
the
a-
boat?
Well, how-
on
how-
You
that?
should go on
Yeah.
that forum and ask.
Yeah.
I've read a little bit of it because I'm a longtime X-Men fan,
Yeah.
and I'm also simultaneously a John Byrne fan. And
Yeah.
when I
Right.
saw that way after the fact, I had missed it, and there it was in all
Yeah.
its glory for free. I thought, how is this not finished?
I really
and
do.
published?
I really do think you should ask and let me know when you do it,
Yeah, well,
so I can be there.
I got to think, if I were an editor at Marvel Comics, I'd be thinking, today I can either call John Byrne and negotiate, or I can do about 1,000 other things.
Right. Might be a tough negotiation, you think?
I mean, I've heard Byrne can be a little tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. So, completely different. Let's take it sideways. You guys are on the con circuit. How are you liking that at this stage? I mean, like, is that working out for you?
No.
And I like to ask that,
No.
like, how exhausting
answer.
is
No,
it
it is.
really?
I said, "Oh, not no."
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like, I know it's exhausting, but fans, I think we see a different level of creator fans now than we saw 20, 30 years ago at these cons. They want to come. They want signatures. They want
yeah.
remarks. They want, these things. is this fruitful for you still?
Yeah. I think Phil and I both approach it the same way, that it's nice to go home with some money. Like, it's good if you're going to spend your 4 days, you want to earn something. But it's not our driving, like, it's not all we care about when we go to a con. So I'm there to meet people. I'm there to hang out with my peers that I hardly ever get to see.
Well, I would think that's a big point of it, too.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of
it's a little boys club or a creators
like tonight,
club.
We had
getaway.
dinner with Rickley and Artie,
Yeah.
who I've loved his stuff for 30 years, and the fact that I'm sitting there chatting with him is so cool. And we've also been in this business long enough that we've started to experience this venerable status. Like, people come up and they go, "Oh my God, you were the first company." Like, "Oh my,"
And they got gray hair.
Jesus, I'd be
right. How old do you think I am?
I know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool. Like, people come up and say, "Oh, you changed." Like, I read comics because of Green Arrow number.
You
1,
got me
or,
back
you know.
into this, or I read my dad's copies of Quiver, and I'm like, oh damn.
So
And
you
that
guys
really,
are
like,
still
I-
fans.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, that's part of why I do this. So to experience that, at almost every con, to know that I made a difference in some little way, like was made for me when I needed it. That's super rewarding.
Well, then conversely, attending whatever number of cons, if you're still fans, are you still shopping? Are you still collecting? And if
I'm bad at that.
Oh,
well, it's
I
hard.
mean,
It's hard to get away from the table.
Yeah.
And as a comic
Yeah.
dealer, we could both say the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah,
It's
for
hard
sure.
to.
we do shop though. I mean, like if they're specific, I mean, look, there's a stack of books.
Right.
You know, we took a
You
break.
left the
You
store
were
for
left
5
alone
minutes.
for
We
10
came back
minutes,
with
and here you are.
But yeah, there's usually dollar box diving will go,
Sure.
and then if it's a rare convention that has original art dealer, we might go.
Oh yes.
Or
Oh, yeah.
if there are other artists selling their art, it's a good chance to check out their stuff.
I don't say this like, woe is me. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. But it is it's draining to sit there and have maybe 100 social interactions,
Even
So-
positive ones, it
Yeah.
taxes.
Because you don't want to be grumpy with anybody, even if
Sure.
So it's sometimes hard for me to go, time to get up and walk the floor and talk to people. And it was funny. So I'm really bad at doing it. Today at 5:15, the show's closing at 7. At 5:15, I go, "Phil, I'm doing it. I'm not putting it off till Sunday.
Taking
I'm
the
going to go
march."
walk the floor."
Right.
I get 100 feet away from my table, and here come dear friends I haven't seen in 3 years, and it's over. And so I stand there and talk to them for an hour. I
the
sabotaged
worst is
again.
when you have to go to the bathroom and you got to cross the whole,
Oh boy.
and you run into so many people.
And you have to take 30
It should have been a
selfies.
10-minute trip. It's 45 minutes of shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
But those are great problems to have.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
Sure.
yeah, don't
And-
feel bad for us. And also, most of the time, I think we're at the stage in our careers now that we don't do cons that don't cover our costs.
Sure.
And so it's not like a business decision for us to decide whether or not to table at a show, except for in terms of our time.
Right.
So when we were starting out, we were like, all right, I got to make X amount to cover the table, X amount to cover the hotel
Right.
and gas, and it was stressful. And now that's not really part of the equation for us. So
Well, and I would also think as maturity in the industry came, sometimes those weekends could possibly create future business.
Oh,
for you
absolutely.
as
every
well.
time. Yeah, every time. That's
Yeah.
how you hear about gigs opening up. It's how you people know that you're still out there and still look and it also reminds people I always wanted to work with that guy or that girl and now that we I can tell that we can mesh in a conversation or something, I'm going to pursue trying to work with that person.
That's
Well,
fantastic.
in terms of gigs, while you're at cons, are you guys offering up commissions?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I am
taking
yeah.
work actively at the con.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
With-
easier for me to do, for some reason. It's easier for me to do a commission at a convention than at home. At home, I feel like I should be working.
Well,
on
you have
my
all the
assignment.
distractions of normal life.
Yeah, but at a convention, I'm holed up in a hotel room. I might as well do a finish
Sure.
commission.
So, with that, I have to ask you, Andy. I've
Yeah.
hosted you multiple times at small shows that I ran. Are you still doing the art exchange
Yes.
with young artists?
Yeah, it hasn't happened this weekend, but if it happens organically, if I see an opportunity, I'll just ask. So do you want me to describe it, or
No, sir.
Please.
I will let you.
Okay.
I was going to, but I would probably butcher it. I'd be glad to let the people hear what you do.
So if a young person comes to the table, we're usually talking from 8 to 12 years old, somewhere in that range, and they seem into this stuff and they're excited and looking around, I'll just say, oh, do you like to draw? And they say, yeah. And then I'll say, would you like to trade drawings? Like, I'll do you one and you do me one. And usually they're kind of confused for a moment.
Yeah.
And I explain it. I say, look, I have paper and I have markers and you can use anything you want. And then they go, oh, yeah, that sounds fun. So, yeah, they'll stand there at my table for like a half hour and make me a drawing. And I'll do them a drawing. And then they hand it to me and I say, no, it's not signed. And then we take a photo together, and I always get permission. I say, parents, is it okay? Can I put this on my Insta or whatever? But it's really, I mean, I have a little stack, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them at home.
I've witnessed
I've
at least a
collected
half a
and-
dozen,
yeah.
and it's
It's really
always
fun.
great to see. Those kids, I feel like that creates a moment. If they have interest
Right.
in pursuing this as a career, that connection they make with you probably will never leave them. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
even if they don't, even if they just like remember the good time
Yes.
they had a convention with this one guy. Yeah.
And
Yes.
I really enjoy it. And the only time it's ever seemed like it wasn't great is when it was forced by a parent.
Yeah, like
And came
do
yeah.
what you do. Draw
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
Draw for the man. in
If
the
it happens
hat.
organically, it's always fun. Yeah, it's really good.
Here's a question I wanted to ask. Are you guys still working old school with actual pencils and ink and paper?
all digital.
Or is it all digital? Is there a combination? And what's your thoughts on all of that?
I don't have any opinion on the way anybody else works.
Sure.
Like whatever like routine you've got to produce work is kosher in my book, but I'm still 100% traditional.
Wow.
Because for a couple reasons. One, I like having a finished piece at the end. I like
Yes.
having art.
We're both passionate
Physical.
about original art
Yeah, we-
ourselves,
Just-
so
yeah.
the
Yeah,
idea
me
that
too.
we'd be giving up making it seems kind
But
of weird.
it sounds funny to say it, but to some degree, I feel like that's a lost art
Mhm.
in this industry.
Yeah, and
Everything is very digital now. Yeah.
And I'm not going to pass any judgment aesthetically on that. Like some people use it to great effect, and some people don't.
Absolutely.
Just like traditional.
Mm-hmm.
But I also my training at art school was very, very like hands-on, and no undoing things. Like you have to get into a jam in your drawing to like fish something good out. That's part of the like my that's part of my process. Is sort of like I have to lose it before I can find it again, and the only way to do that is like on the page. Well, a lot of people are like projectors. Like Jack Kirby was a projector. He saw something in his mind, and then he started in one corner and ended in another, and it was all exactly what he saw in his mind. And I'm not.
That's
I'm a
wild.
mess maker. So like I start on the page, and like maybe 30% of it is in my mind, and the other like 70% of it is the struggle I'm going through on the page. And if it was a strictly digital process, that struggle wouldn't take place. I'd be undoing and like,
So almost like some of the passion wouldn't be relayed.
right.
In that.
For me,
Yes,
at least
I get
for
that.
my, so like that struggle's got to be on the page. And because the struggle is sort of the interest. I have this theory, and I don't know if it's accurate, but like I feel like a lot of what appeals to your readers is stuff that's outside of your control as a creator. So it's like the little quirks and mannerisms that you may not have like full control over, or may not even like in your own work, but they appeal to people that read your stuff.
Sure.
And you may never, and if you have too much control over your stuff, you might never like hit that secret formula. And so, at least for me, working traditionally is a big part of finding that personality in my work.
Sure.
So that being said, with traditional work, at what point with any piece of art do you know that you're done? Do you allow yourself a certain amount of time, or is there just you see it and it's over?
It's always about 10 minutes after I should have stopped.
Well, see,
You know?
You overworked
Yeah,
it. is
I
what
think
you-
everybody overworks.
Sure.
Like whenever I watch like somebody doing a YouTube or an Instagram reel or whatever of their drawing, and I'm watching them do a live drawing, like before they stop, I'm always begging them in my mind, stop here.
well,
And-
it's easy to not stop because you can always erase and go again.
Right.
Or if you're painting, you can always put more paint on the canvas.
But it's also fun, so it's hard to stop doing something that's fun, and it's also hard to be objective about when you should stop. But like every time I watch one of those tutorials, if you take that time stamp back like 10 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever before it's over, it's almost always better than
Like nothing
was.
was benefited by
Like
Right.
people overwork a
continuing.
lot of things.
so everybody needs an editor.
Well, I would
in process?
maybe, or at least just like you can fall into mannerisms, especially cartoonists, because we have to have shorthand for so many things. Because like comic book art is self-generated to a degree that almost no other, like maybe animation's the only other case where things are as self-generated as they are in comics. Everything else is done through observation or reference.
Right.
In comics, we got to jam it out ourselves, partially due to the deadlines, but also because we got into this because we wanted to use our imagination instead of the real world. So,
Sure.
like you fall into mannerisms because you're like, oh, this is how I do a nose, this is how I do a car. And so sometimes you fall into rote drawing, which is like dead drawing, and you lose your objectivity about when it's still a quality drawing. I know it's getting like pretty deep in the weeds.
Deep
but-
is great.
Yeah,
But so when you talk about this, I think about the Dave Stevens, Rocketeer, Bulldog Paul, that everybody talks about. He was holding this issue up because he kept erasing this paw and starting it over. Do you have that piece of art that you just feel like you always went back to try to make it better?
Dave's the worst example because he was
Yeah,
such a perfectionist.
yes,
Like I don't
yeah.
think you should
Well,
use.
I think that showed through on his art, though.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
for
it's-
sure,
it's-
for sure. But like we both came up during a time when like you had to hit deadlines and like you got to call something done even if it's not done.
Right.
You know, and it's got to go out
And
the door.
Dave could not call a
No,
deadline.
no.
And
at
are we
all.
at a place now where there's not deadlines?
No, there's still deadlines, but
Maybe not so tight.
I
It
mean,
depends where you're working.
Yeah.
Well, the digital
Who's cutting
world
the
probably
check?
allows
Yeah.
things to be a
things-
little looser. You know, it doesn't all have to go through the mail.
But I will say the advice I most often give young artists at shows is you got to forget perfect, finish this thing the best you can, and make the next one better. You can't progress if you're constantly just
Sure.
spinning your wheels on the same freaking problem.
Well, and I think that's the biggest hurdle for anybody with a creative gene is just accepting what you have done to be acceptable. you
Well,
know?
and it's not just drawing or
No.
painting; it is
Yeah,
art
sure.
in general.
Yeah, music.
You
across
guys-
the board.
Yeah.
We all suffer onto it.
You guys have no idea how much I'm going to think about all of these recordings until it's released and put out there and
He's
everything.
gonna
So-
call us tomorrow and say, "Can
And
we
really-
do that again?"
Yeah, you guys want to come back in?
I used to have a
One more
motto. Since I entered therapy for a while, I'm trying to work on not living this way. But my motto was, I don't like being so hard on myself, but I don't know any other way to not suck.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I viewed like if I wasn't that hard on myself, who is going to make me better? And my therapist convinced me you should maybe try to approach your work from a more positive viewpoint and be thankful for your talents and appreciate. And I'm working on that.
And you were like, "Hey, F you."
Well, I've been telling students for many, many, many years, if you make 50% of any audience happy,
Oh,
it's an enormous
That's
win.
huge.
Enormous.
Yeah.
If you get half, you cannot underestimate how powerful that is because you can never make everybody happy,
Oh,
no
no.
matter what you do.
No.
There will always be somebody opposed to what
Yeah.
you're doing for whatever reason.
I'm not going to talk about the artist, but during the break we were talking about a specific artist, and it was dividing you guys. And I worship that guy, so it was dividing all of us. But like
we
it
probably
doesn't.
both worship him too.
But it doesn't make like any one of our choices invalid.
No,
you know,
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like
It's all subjective.
Yeah, it's like being into country music or not, or
Well,
you
sure.
know.
Or what era of country
Right.
music
We could
are
sit here and
talking
say
about?
Ford, no Chevy.
Yeah,
Ford,
yeah.
no Chevy. And then third guy comes up and says Dodge.
Right.
It
Yeah.
All right. So, I hope Andy doesn't kick me in the rear after asking this question, but I thought this was something that I don't feel a lot of guys talk about. And this will almost relate to also another conversation we had while we were on break.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell me to cut this out, I will, sir.
Okay.
I promise you. But
I ain't scared.
I know that you have struggled with some physical ailments
Yeah.
due to your craft.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because as we talk about young artists and things growing up, like, people should understand everything that might come with that.
Bending over a drafting table is not the most natural position for a body. And you try, at some point in your career, you learn about ergonomics and you try to angle your table so you don't lean forward. But I don't know, me, I ended up always leaning forward a little. And so my neck, between some genetic predisposition to arthritis and that, my neck is kind of a piece of crap now.
Sure.
And I've already had a fusion in my lower back. And my hand goes numb a little bit here and there. And I just had a steroid shot on my neck 10 days ago. So, yeah, it takes a toll. Being at that board takes a toll. And if you're going to do this kind of thing for a living, you need to try to have a balance. But comics has built a lot of its industry on grinding people down, not allowing them a balance. Like
Page by
paying them
page.
enough that they got to keep at it, you know? So it's tough. And that's part of my transition to writing was you can solve a writing problem when you're out on a walk or, you know, and the position does not have to be so
Right.
grueling for your body.
you can do it from the couch.
Yeah. Now, it's also, for me, it's harder and more challenging. But, yeah, it's just, if you're going to do this for a living, you need to find a way to try to approach it and maintain your health, which can be difficult for sure.
So do you have any regrets based on that?
No,
Would you
not
change
really.
anything?
I'll tell you what, the only regret I have in life, because I've had a pretty good life, great wife, family, lucky career, you know, happy. But I wish I'd gambled on my own talents as a writer earlier than I did.
Like, as far as just forcing yourself to
Yeah,
put it out
I wish
there.
I'd.
As opposed to inking work?
Yeah. And I don't regret my inking career, and I'm really proud of it. But I wish I'd maybe gotten the writing going a little earlier.
Yeah.
And had and committed and found a way to have more projects out there that are mine. Because it's hard. When somebody is paying you decent money to work on their stuff, it's hard to pull yourself away and say, I'm now going to work on my thing for free because I deserve to have that chance to succeed. But I wish I'd done a little more of it earlier. But I don't have regrets in the grand scheme, but I wish I'd bet on myself a little earlier maybe.
And I think we both have this, and maybe it's from growing up in the Midwest, that we wanted to be good boys and have our good behavior recognized and rewarded by an industry. And the industry, not through anything malicious, just does not work that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, no one's keeping track of like what you deserve because of your hard work. You've got to abdicate. You've got to be your own best promotion.
Sure.
And at least for me, for sure, I didn't have that position. I thought, like, people will recognize that I'm Frank Miller inside, you know. Even if I don't go out and be Frank Miller, they'll recognize that I deserve a shot at my Dark Knight Returns.
Somebody needs to put that quote on a T-shirt.
Yeah, but no one's keeping track. No one's keeping track but you. And so if you want something to happen in your career, you've got to make it happen. You know?
And by the way, I'm not unique. Phil's problem aren't spine, but he's almost worked himself to death too.
Like I worked myself into like heart failure.
Oh, Jesus.
And,
Wow.
Well, no, it was my cardiologist now thinks it was a virus, but because I was really heavy at the time, I couldn't recover from that virus like I should. And that was being sedentary and staying. Like, if you stay up till 3 a.m. working, there's another mealtime at midnight, you know? and that's
you're
like you
eating
don't
more
eat. Yeah,
and
you eat
yeah.
more. You drink. You have too much caffeine.
You're not
number
moving,
4.
and you're
Yeah.
just staying,
And
your
you're just,
blood's
and
not
this is
pumping,
and this is your
yeah.
workout. You know.
Yeah.
And
you
I
can-
know there were nights he fell asleep at the board.
Yeah, you kill yourself that way.
Yeah.
And I almost did, and I had to change a lot of things.
Holy, I apologize for bringing us down to this point, guys, but I appreciate
here
you
we
guys
both are.
sharing that with us
But we're
because
live still.
Yeah, we're still kicking.
I
yeah,
do
but
feel
people-
that's something that a lot of people don't
well,
know about the
yeah,
craft.
But you can kill yourself selling cars too.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
Well, at the risk of bringing up Kirby again, to my understanding, not only did he sit at the board all the time, but had a stogie
Yeah,
that he was puffing on.
and drinking
Dad-
pounding coffee.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's
So
amazing.
Andy's modeled his whole life after this.
well, apparently, yeah.
Well, I think that's it. Do we have anything
How'd we
else?
do?
Yeah, we're ending on the death note.
Yeah,
Well,
the
I mean,
death
we-
note seems sad. I mean, we
Yeah.
get all right. So let's talk about one more. All right, we talked about shows. What are you guys looking forward to this year? What other appearances do you have coming up that you're excited about?
I like all of them because like either they're old favorites, like we do one in Omaha that we love, we do one in Sioux Falls that we love every year.
Is
Ocon,
Okan? Yes,
Stuff
yeah.
that's all fairly close
That's
to home.
like an old school comic
I
book
love
show
that show.
again, right?
It's a great show, and we just have a blast. We go to a ball game. We have restaurants we love.
steakhouse, yeah.
Fantastic.
We have a good time there. And then SuperCon in Sioux Falls is fantastic. But like the new ones I also like because I like seeing new places.
Sure.
Or helping young show like I'm gonna do one in Des Moines. And we're doing a little one in Lebanon, Missouri, one day.
Lebanon.
Yeah, because
Really?
I like doing those kind of shows too because like you sort of help like establish the nerd community there that way.
Sure.
Like he's talking about with his drawing exchange, like just showing up at a place like Lebanon, it makes some kid that like feels like he's out on an island, reading comics there, know that there's this wider world that like of creators that are like from towns like Lebanon, like I am. I'm from a little town, and but then also we also get to do cool things like like later this year I'm going to Brazil. We've been to Spain.
Fantastic.
Wow.
We're both going to Portland in the fall.
Yeah. So
beautiful.
yeah, it's one of the real like unsung perks of this job is you get to like see different cities that you haven't seen before for a weekend at a time, which is the perfect bite of any city.
Right. Just in and out. And
Yeah.
get your,
And
Some
I
different
get to
food in a different
experience.
place.
Yeah.
I won't drive anymore on show day if at all possible. So most places are kind enough to let me stay an extra day,
Sure.
and I get to go do something in Memphis. I go to the Sun Studio tour or something like that.
Very nice.
That's
It's
fun.
nice. It's cool to have
There's
those
good
chances
barbecue
to
there.
see new things and have somebody else foot in the bill. And
Yeah, right.
it's nice.
You really can't beat that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're so spoiled.
And what I love about cons that just occurred to me when he was talking. There are a lot of cons where you feel like you get to see people living their true selves in a way that they don't get to very often.
That is their come out.
And
there.
I find
They're-
that really powerful.
Yeah.
To see
for
people
sure.
being joyous, dress the way they want to, or acting out the person that they really feel inside in a way that they can't do it at their job at Walmart or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost
Sure.
like a.
And
It's
I
almost
think
like
that's really cool.
It's
An
like a
outlet.
low key Pride Day almost.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to show up to Walmart dressed as Princess Zelda.
They frown on
Yeah.
it. They do.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, I guess now we have a positive
Yes.
note to end
Yeah.
on. Is there anything you guys want to plug?
Yeah, I'm boring
appearances?
because I've got this stuff
anything.
in development at the moment, so I can't talk about it yet.
Yeah.
But
We
stuff
keep
coming out.
hearing about
26
this
is gonna
shadow
be,
conspiracy.
yeah,
you got
26
going on.
is going to be big, I think. So
Fantastic.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
Same. But I just had a book come out from. I just had a GI Joe Silent Missions come out, one shot that I got to write and draw. which
Was
is,
that with Image?
with Skybound? Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was like a tribute
fantastic.
to it's a tribute to the Larry Hama Steve Lealoa silent issue.
Mm.
So it was like a chance to like really stretch my storytelling chops and do
Fantastic.
a book that I wrote Andrew. So I'm really proud of that. And it just got announced that I'm doing a book with James Robinson of
Nice.
of Starman fame.
Yes, yes.
And we're doing a book that's like sort of a spiritual sequel to Leave It to Chance, if anybody remembers that.
Yep.
Like an all ages book that's sophisticated enough for older readers, and that'll be out in the fall. And then, like Andy, I have stuff coming from Ignition Press.
Just
as
can't
well.
talk about it yet.
Yeah, and I have I'm writing a really cool horror franchise for IDW that's not announced yet, but it's fun. And
Well, what I just heard was you guys have to come back next year and tell
Sure.
us about all
Yeah.
that stuff.
yeah, I just
well-
got to get a con to invite us. and
Yeah.
we'll be
I
back.
also heard that Phil doesn't drink, but Andy does, so I'm going to pour something down his throat and see what I can get out of
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, it's
No,
off camera.
yeah.
That's how we bring balance to the
Yeah.
force.
That's right. One balances out the
Yeah.
other.
Yes.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both.
Yeah.
I was very happy that we could finally get you here together.
Could not appreciate
Andy,
it more.
I've seen many times. Phil, I've tried to get. And
here I
he
am.
always told me if I was in Iowa or something, I guess, that
Yeah, well, you
I
come
could
to
come
me.
up there and, but here I
You
am
gotta
in a
come be
small
children
city.
of the corn.
Yeah.
But very graciously, thank you both for coming in, spending the time with us, talking to us, giving up your Saturday evening on a busy con weekend. Thank you. I wish you guys both the best, all the success, and keep making that money and making the fans happy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
It's a pleasure,
one,
guys.
one more thing. You guys picked out a couple of comics. If you wouldn't
Oh
mind
yeah, let's.
showing
Oh yeah.
Oh,
all,
God.
all of our
Oh,
people.
here's your nerd moment here.
I'm gonna
what
make
you
a-
guys picked out.
Magnanimous gesture on camera now, Phil. You may have my
Oh,
warlord
no.
number 3.
Oh, so
If you-
nice.
I really wanted this
So,
one.
If you would show that to the camera, because I am also a warlord lover.
Yeah, we
so
love
I
warlords.
appreciate this so much.
I've got to trade you one back then.
Okay,
those all
I'll pick one
brothers?
out.
You wanted this one, right?
I probably have that.
No,
I'll
I do
look
too.
through.
I do too. I own all these.
I got myself a warlord comic, and I got a warp comic that I have no idea who made it. It's got a Frank Bruner cover.
I think it might be Howard Chaykin and George Freeman
Yeah.
on the inside.
There's a good
so.
chance of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out.
So,
And-
speaking of Warlord and Mike Rell, I mean, do you and him have hat face-offs?
Oh,
at
yeah.
cons
Yeah, green-
ever?
He tends to
arrow
wear
hat
like the
face.
same model. I think
It's a much
It's
bigger
more like a
brand.
big
Yeah.
game hunter kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
hat.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
All
yeah,
right.
we have a lot in common. Like known for Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One time we were on a plane back from a convention. I thought, if this plane goes down, it's going to be a sad day in Green Arrow.
Oh,
Also, the massive loss of life will be there.
yeah, the life secondary, but
Yeah.
the creativity that was lost.
Can't kill all the Green Arrow guys at once.
It'll be snuffed out.
All right, happy Saturday, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time for the obligatory ask that you go like, subscribe, and share so that we can keep doing this.